See, we've had a long history we cannot ignore, but we need not repeat nor continue to fall into those same patterns of destruction others have fallen into. We can, in fact, grow. I don't know about you, but I do grow. From those who I know who fell and why they fell, I do grow. But I wanted to initiate this conversation by letting you know that the majority of this world is in a stupor, a great blindness, and they cannot see. Because if they could see, there'd be not one person today, not one, who would sit complacent in their day-to-day activities, but they would be engaged with their Father and with those in control to stop what is forming quickly. But they haven't, because they cannot see it. They cannot see it because of what they're already engaged with. I tell you this, if your problem in your homes or at a high degree, it's very difficult for you to notice your neighbor's problems. If you ever sat in peace of mind, you can notice the struggle of just about everybody. See, when you have no struggle and your heart still remains good within you, you can discern the struggle of others. But if your problem at home is of such a degree that the noise level limits your ability to notice somebody else's problems, that's being in a stupor, because you have an inability to really acknowledge or to see and acknowledge somebody else's problems. Your discernment level is then cut off because it turns inwardly, only to yourselves. And you have one primary thought: how can I save my own life, like people are doing today? And I tell you again, they're in a stupor. They will regret the days that they were in this stupor, this blindness that they suffer from. Because in the days when they could have made a difference, they didn't. But even that is purposed. This whole world is about to be rudely awakened, whether they are ready or not, just as this world was awakened several times before. People were not ready. Anyway, I'm reading out of Luke 13, starting at verse 24. Strive to enter into the strait gate, for many, I say unto you, will seek to enter in and shall not be able. Now that's disturbing. This is a reality check of faith. This is coming from the Messiah, who is the Word of God made flesh and dwelt among men, our Savior, the one who died for us, the one whose blood covers our iniquities. If we repent, that is to turn away from our sin, strive to enter into the strait gate, for many, I say unto you, will seek to enter in. Let me pause right there. Many are going to seek to enter into the strait gate. You have to have faith to enter into the strait gate. You can't strive to enter into the strait gate if you don't believe, or you won't strive. To strive, that implies passion. That implies that you are putting effort into your entering into the strait gate. Jesus continues, for many, I say unto you, will seek to enter in and shall not be able. That is disturbing. Now continue to follow me. When once the master of the house is risen up and hath shut the door. Who's going to shut the door? Jesus is. If you guys follow this, you're just not going to be fooled. I'm telling you now, we can fool ourselves by having an outlook or an idea about the Word of God that is just not right. It's not correct. There is a reason why not many are able to enter into the strait gate, though they will strive to enter into the strait gate, but they won't be able to enter. In order to strive, you must believe, but they were not able to enter. If I could convey my mind to you, my heart to you, my spirit to you, you would understand, out of all the topics anybody could ever have, this is the most urgent topic. Strive to enter into the strait gate, for many, I say unto you, will seek to enter in and shall not be able to. They won't be able to enter in. There's a reason for that. Once the master of the house has risen up, once he will stand up, he's going to stand up one time, it says, and hath shut the door. By the way, this is echoed in another gospel. When once a master of the house is risen up and hath shut the door, and ye begin to stand without, that means you find yourself outside, and to knock at the door. Now, if you're knocking at the strait door, you know what that means? That means, yes, you did strive to enter into the strait gate. You were not able to in time. So now the master of the house, the one who has power to shut that door, has shut the door. And he says, and ye begin to stand without. That means you're outside the door and begin to knock at the door, saying, Lord, Lord. Now listen to me. He says it twice, Lord, Lord. That's part of the custom. To say it twice like that is to indicate a person who's not really playing games. Did they deceive themselves? They most certainly did. just like people are doing right now today. Because there are a lot of people in pursuit of Christ. They're striving to enter in. But Jesus says there are going to be many that strive to enter into the strait gate, but they won't be able to. Jesus will shut that door. He says, and ye begin to stand without, and to knock at the door, saying, Lord, Lord, open unto us. And he shall answer and say unto you, I know you not whence you are. Who are you? Boy, oh boy. That term, you remember in Genesis, when God asked Adam a question, he said, where are you? God knew where he was, so he didn't want to know his GPS location. He said, where are you? Do you find it eye-opening that the statement here would implicate a condition, the same condition? When Adam sinned, and God said, where are you? After he sinned. Here we have a statement, I know you not whence you are, not who you are, whence you are. Do you know how similar that is to the term, I don't know where you are? You're not standing in the holy place. And if you're not standing in the holy place, if you're not under the shadow of the Almighty, who are you? I know the one standing under the shadow of the Almighty, but who are you? And true enough, today we have a lot of people involved in ministry, following and leading in ministry. But Jesus is saying, many are going to do this. They will strive. You can only strive with persistence and compassion. But he says, I say unto you, they're going to seek to enter in and shall not be able to. There's a clear reason. Then he says, once the master of the house is risen up and has shut the door, and ye begin to stand without to knock at the door, saying, Lord, Lord, open unto us. And he shall answer and say unto you, I know you not whence you are. Then shall ye begin to say, we have eaten and drunk in thy presence. Lord, we were with you. That's us on earth right now. We would say, we had this sermon. We had this great congregation in your name. We built this place in your name. That's what they'll say. Luke 13:26 again. Then shall ye begin to say, we have eaten and drunk in thy presence, and thou hast taught in our streets. Strange phrase. Why not just taught in the streets? Because you're being told something here. When you look at language, and indeed that goes back to the Koine Greek, you begin to understand something. Notice they claim they were their streets. So what is that word? You taught in our streets. That word streets implies more than just a road, but it also implies your walk of life. Listen, but he shall say, I tell you, I know you not whence you are. Depart from me, all ye workers of iniquity. Oh no, wait a minute. He said, depart from me, all you workers of iniquity. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth, when ye shall see Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and all the prophets in the kingdom of God, and you yourselves thrust out. And they shall come from the east, and from the west, and from the north, and from the south, and shall sit down in the kingdom of God. And behold, there are at last, which shall be first, and there are first, which shall be last. That statement, the first to be last and last to be short, implies what? The finishing of. Jesus said this is part of the conclusion. That means what? It did not take place yet. That's part of the conclusion. When the first to be last and the last to be first. It's part of the conclusion. It's the time when the last are first and the first are last. The conclusion to a very long process. If you look at our modern time, there are many who are convinced they're doing exactly what God wants them to do, and you can't tell them any difference. In fact, they say, don't tell me I'm not doing something for the Lord. They get an attitude behind it. How can that be? When humility and meekness follow those who are born again of the Spirit, when a boldness is in them to speak the Lord's words based in his timing, regardless of them facing death or not, so they're not moved by death. See, when the apostles prayed for boldness, they prayed for boldness because they were facing jail. They knew what they would face. Jesus said, I showed Paul everything he would face. I showed them what they would face. They knew what they were going to face. And they said, we need boldness because this is going to turn real too quick. They're going to jail us. They're going to beat us. They're going to scourge us. We're not going to be wanted by even those we preached to. We're going to be kicked out by the churches we established. We're going to be backstabbed. We need boldness to go forward with your word and have nothing of it be changed. And indeed, the apostles spoke, and what they spoke, people utter to this day. They spoke what the Holy Spirit gave them. They recounted the stories of Jesus and the information of Christ, but they didn't change it, regardless if it were illegal or legal. They didn't change it. If they were going to be jailed, they did not change it. If the whole world were going to be after them, like when they stoned Stephen to death, they did not change it. They prayed for boldness at the word of God not be changed by their human frailties. What do you think Paul said? I have new troubles. He said, I have troubles all the time. Matter of fact, if people could see a character like Paul today, they would be convinced he needs to repent. That's what people would say. Why? Because of how he lived and what was happening to him. How people couldn't stand him. He was consistent with a simple word, not a complicated word. What he told was simple, not complicated. They began to look at him like he too was unlearned. But they just didn't know that the Father truly sent him by way of Christ, via the Holy Spirit. And the word he gave was a true word, a word to the Gentiles, given to him, a very tough task. Today, people have a boldness for themselves. The apostles were sent. The Lord prepared those who would hear. We force doors down these days. We do things so people can hear. Why? Because that narrow gate is very difficult to enter. In the story of the 10 virgins, they didn't open the door. The Lord did. And when he shut that door, 5 did not make it. This is the same thing. 5 wise, 5 foolish. They were all virgins. And here we have the clarifications when it says, strive to enter into the gate. For many, I say unto you, will seek to enter in and shall not be able. They were all virgins. They were striving to enter, but some could not enter in. Wouldn't you want to know why? How could so many strive, yet not be able to enter in? The Bible says, Jesus said, I say unto you, they're going to seek to enter in and shall not be able to enter in. Why won't they be able to enter in? Lord have mercy. If people could open their eyes and see the state of themselves right now, they would have an answer. And I tell you, part of it has to do with entitlement. The way we believe and operate in this world, we think in a way taught by the world. We utilize philosophies of the world, things of the world, bring them into holiness, and attempt to utilize, to hybridize them, causing them to be one thing. They're not one thing. All philosophies of this world is born of something. But who checks the origins? There are phrases people use that are satanic phrases, yet they're used in the church often, and people have no idea what they're doing. Academia is formulated. Now, I tell you something, it is highly satanic. It will disgust you. People think themselves to be important because their grammar is correct. I tell you, there's a formula behind grammar that is meant to accomplish something. See, when you start combating these things, because many people don't know, they speak high-level satanic things in Christian environments because they copy the world and bring that nonsense into a place of holiness. Time for us to see them. With Luke 13 is mirrored with the 10 virgins, 5 wise, 5 foolish. But why couldn't the 5 foolish, why were they left outside? It's very simple. In order to not have their problem, it takes you to have Jesus as your Savior. And in order for Jesus to be your Savior, you have to believe upon His name. To believe upon His name means you know what the name stands for. And to believe what the name stands for, Yeshua HaMashiach, that means you know His story. And to know His story means you agree with His gospel. And to agree with His gospel means you were marked from the beginning. There are a few things that are not clarified. Things it seems that people will not discuss. Because when you do discuss them, you're going to lose people who call themselves friends. I'm one of those. I'm not concerned about that. But I would rather somebody cut all ties with me and God use me as an instrument for them to make it into the kingdom than for them to love me and them not to make it into the kingdom. That's why I'm not concerned about people's friendship so much. I'm concerned about the souls of men, because when I found the struggle, the war, it was not anything like one would imagine it to be. And it's right there in the Bible. But a prideful heart, a prideful mind will cause a blindness to what's in the Word of God. And I do not follow man on anything. Have you noticed? We were warned that there are men of old, twice plucked up by the roots, clouds without water. Men ordained to be ungodly men. Ordained before of old. That means in the beginning, their spirits were here. They are found in our feasts of charity. A feast is a gathering of a place where people gather to consume. But a feast of charity, we consume love. Well, the Bible says God is love. So in our gatherings, where God is key and the cause of that gathering, He is the point of that gathering, you're going to have these ancient ones among you. The spirit of the ancients is among us. in someone that you know. They're right here to taint everything. Haven't you noticed in any conversation of love, somebody comes up with a conversation of hate or they question love itself? Haven't you noticed that? Haven't you noticed that when we start to get further in things, somebody comes up with a pity party topic, takes all the attention, and then it squashes the point of the entire conversation? Haven't you noticed that something is always happening through someone to take attention away from the topic being spoken of? Haven't you noticed that when the Holy Spirit begins to work and move among all of us, offense is also near? So again, if you don't address things by way of truth, how can you expect godly results? He didn't give his good results to something founded in a falsehood or lie or any of those things that we do, because all too often we say we don't have a problem. In so doing, we're lying. All of us, everybody here has a problem. Everybody has something, and everybody's going to have a situation and a problem till the day they exit the earth. But all too often, we will not discuss it. We cover it up, and it eats us up from the inside out, or stagnates for years. Let this place be for repair. Let it be for healing, the furthering of the gospel in all of our lives. Many strive to enter into the strait gate, but will not be able to. When the master shuts the door, the people who are shut out of the door will begin to knock, saying, Lord, Lord, open unto us. And he shall answer unto them, I know you not whence you are. Then it says they will say, we have eaten and drunk in thy presence, and thou hast taught us in our streets. We're the ones you were teaching. We ate with you, we drank with you. That is to say, we supped with you. You know, when the Lord says, I'll never leave you nor forsake you, he says, if you keep my commandments, me and the Father will make our abode with you and will come in and sup with you. That's what that is, eating and drinking. But we're not talking about food. To eat and drink is to ingest the Word of God, to be filled by the water of life, to eat and drink. So we do that often when we study the Word together, when we magnify the Lord for Him being the Lord. We drink and we eat with Him. That does not guarantee us passage into this strait gate. Just because some people, when it says, thou hast taught in our streets, when you have a pastor preaching in a church, who is preaching, the pastor or the Lord? Because if you're a pastor, you have a heart for the people. You take care of them like a father would sons, and you carry the gospel when you're a pastor for Yeshua. You carry the gospel. The gospel are the words of Jesus, the good news of Jesus Christ. So we don't carry our own word. Pastors don't. I'm not a pastor. But pastors don't carry their own word. They carry the gospel of Jesus Christ because they're considered ambassadors with a flock. So when they speak what Jesus spoke. In so doing, people perceive or receive from Christ through them. That's why he said, my sheep hear my voice, and a stranger they will not follow. And that is so true, because when you hear a doctrine that is contrary to Jesus, that is not Christ. You already know it. You may hear it, but you're not going to follow it. Now, in order to follow something, it must be instructive. And when it comes to instruction, we only take that from Jesus. We are weary about everything else. Have you noticed? To follow someone is to receive their instruction and act upon it. We only do that with the words of Yeshua. A stranger we have not followed. You may have gone down the wrong exit, looking at paranormal activity or ETs or other subjects. That does not mean you engaged in the ceremonies they have. You did not take the instruction of it. You did read the topic, but you did not operate by the instruction of it. I've seen some people go so far as to try and call some thing out there unto themselves. That's when you're following the instruction of a stranger. That's when you're at a critical point. You're in danger. Many of you just looked at the material. You looked at it and it did woo you and awe you, to tell the truth, but you did not perform the ceremonies. Because to follow someone again is to receive their instruction. I don't know about you, but I receive the instruction of the Lord. Even if a person says something that aligns perfectly with the Lord, I will receive that as I would from the Lord. Do you guys understand? But if somebody gives me some oddball instruction that does not line up with the Word of God, there's a knowing in all of us. All that belong to the Lord, there's a knowing in you if something did not come from your Messiah. Because the Scripture says again, my people hear my voice, and a stranger they will not follow. And again, to follow someone is to receive their instruction, to live like they live, to do as they do. We don't do that. We're striving to enter into this strait gate. Tonight, there's a warning that many will not be able to. And I ask a question, of the 10 virgins, 5 wise, 5 foolish. When the 5 wise, when they had their candles, their lanterns lit, they went into the door. The door was shut behind them. As soon as the others went off to get the oil, the door was shut. They were outside of it. Here, those who are outside, it says, they will say, open up to us. You know us. And the Lord will say something like, who are you? Well, we're the ones that you preached in the streets, or you preached to us. We ate and drank in your presence. In the Bible, it extends and it goes so far as to tell people they will say, we preached in your name. We healed in your name. We cast out devils in your name. They'll name all sorts of things they did by way of the name of Jesus. But Jesus says to them, depart from me, you worker of iniquity. I never knew you. You did not visit me in the prison. Give me something to drink when I was thirsty. Feed me when I was hungry. Clothe me when I was naked. And they'll say, when did we see you do this? When did we see you naked or in prison or thirsty or hungry? And he'll say, what you have done to the least of these, you have done unto me. Now follow me. What does that mean? So we have a twofold deal here. They didn't get through because Jesus told them they did not feed him when he was hungry. They did not give him something to drink when he was thirsty. They did not visit him when he was in prison. Do you guys understand that? So how do you visit somebody when they're in prison? What is he talking about? Visit someone when they're in prison. Is that for all of us to go to the jails and to visit somebody physically locked up in jail? Who would believe that? How many say that's what you do? You go to a jail and you visit somebody. You fulfill that. Well, it's similar. They're not excluded. I'll tell you that. But some of those folks that are in jail, well, that's what they chose. But I want you to hear this. To be in prison, Jesus told us what that was. Jesus answered everything he ever asked. Do you know that? How many of you know what prison is? What's another word for prison? Captive. Jesus came to set the captive free. Bondage is what that is. To be in prison is to be in bondage, is to be captive. Jesus came to set the captive free. We too were once captive. By what? Sin, of course. Now, let me ask you this. Do you scoff at the prisoner, ignore the prisoner, or do you visit the prisoner? But before you say anything, here's what visiting a prisoner is. Let me take the worst person in the capital I know. If they're full of sin that they chose, they're in bondage. Satan's got them. They're in the grip of Satan. They're in bondage. And if they're in bondage, what shall I do? Point out all their errors? Is that what I do? Tell everybody else how stinky they are? That's not what I do. Do you see how some will strive to enter into the strait gate, but many will not be able to enter in? Why? Because they will not visit those who are in prison. Those who are just full of sin, they will not visit those people. The most rotten person in the White House. Make up any story you want. Believe the narratives that are out there in the world. And I tell you this, Satan has them. And if Satan has them, what saint has gone to them? What saint can verify, yes, I went to that person, and from my heart and my soul, I gave them what I could. That's visiting those in prison. That's not just go up to somebody in bondage and say, hello. No, that's not visiting them. To visit them is just like the Lord visits us. If Jesus says you didn't visit him, then you find the definition of the word visit by his own usage. So if Jesus says that he will visit you and then describes it, then that's exactly what he means. There are folks in bondage. They're full of sin. They're wrapped up in sin. Where's the minister that went to them, who gave them their time, who could approach them, and who spoke to them and gave them the good news? Who's got the good news going to them? Because you know what I hear? Doesn't matter what administration it is. All I hear are people scoffing the prisoners. Come on now, I know this is, I told you, listen, the flesh will rise up in these conversations. It will resist. This is one of the most basic conversations we can have, but it's a very important one. Who is visiting them? Now, do you guys see, now I need your feedback in this. Do you see, even by this small, teeny tiny example, how that many will not be able to enter into the strait gate? It's not because they don't understand. It's because they will not do it. Do you see how the world, it doesn't matter what it is in the world, but do you see how those things of the world are contrary to the gospel? Can you see it? Something is wrong in the world. There are operatives playing with people's lives, and for the most part, they have been highly successful. Jesus said that. You didn't visit me when I was in prison. You didn't clothe me when I was naked. They said, well, when did we see you naked? What does God call naked and bare? You know what he said about Jerusalem? You're going to be naked and bare, and I'm going to call those surrounding nations around you to eat your flesh. They're going to burn you and eat your flesh. This was in the Old Testament. That's what he said. What does that mean? If you're naked and bare, you have no garment whatsoever. See, when God adopted the Amorite and the Hittite, he put them in garments. He washed them and put them in garments. He made them his people. We're washing our garments white in the blood of the Lamb. We too have garments. Some even have strange garments. They're not the right one, but some of us have strange garments. But to have no garment whatsoever? My goodness. And who would go to them and witness to them about garments? If you're naked, which you're not supposed to be, that means you believe in something so baseless. That means you're shattered all over the place. You're empty beyond belief. But who's going to visit those folks? Who's going to give them clothing? Who's going to offer them clothing instead of criticism? Do you guys partly see what I'm saying? You see, the way of the world is to see a man's faults and judge him for those faults. If a man kills something, then kill him or lock him up in jail. That's the world's way. Your Father's way is not that way. The world will jail him. We're not to stick our finger in the wound or scoff at him being jailed. But God called us to give out some garments, give out some clothing. God called us to visit those who are in prison. God called us to give those who are thirsty something to drink. God called us to give those who are hungry something to eat. God did not call us to scoff anyone's condition. God did not call us to judge, not that way. This is a simple but resistive topic, because I'll tell you something, because people are not doing this. A very different natured beast is on the rise. Innocent people will die, not from the hands of any government organization, but from the hands of people like you and just like me. And they'll justify their killing, and it's going to happen soon, and it's going to happen right here in America. It's going to happen in Europe. It's going to happen in Japan. It's going to happen in Italy. It's going to happen in most of the free world. It is soon to take place. Death will be a result of it. They're going to do so in the name of good, but twisted. So you can see one of the points why people are not able to enter into that strait gate is because they have damaged something they were supposed to be gaining. When you are in the world and you will not clothe the naked, feed the hungry, give drink to the thirsty, visit the prisoners, you gain no oil. You have no experience. How can you gain experience if you will not engage in the gospel, right? So in order to do that, if you do one of those things and you do so in the name of the Lord, you gain what? Experience. With what? With the Word of God. When you have experience with the Word of God, your understanding grows. All that's called oil. So that when a hard time comes upon you in your life, a trial, because you have oil, your lamp continues to burn, because you have experience, because you have built upon your faith and your trust of the Lord. Your confidence is there. But if you have no oil, it's because you had no experience. And to have no experience is to have not gone out and to give someone something to drink, to give someone something to eat, to clothe someone, or to visit a prisoner. Do you guys see it now? You're not going to have oil unless you do those things. And normally people without oil curse their own past. They say to themselves, my past, it should not have happened, because they have no experience. Once you have experience, you realize trials are promised to us on a continuous basis. We're going to be in one trial coming out of another. Something's going to go on somewhere all the time. This grants us experience. The result of a trial or tribulation is your oil. And it's that oil that keeps your faith going all the time. Just like me, a lot of people around me, they have they kind of lost. I'm not talking about you guys. I'm talking about folks around me. They don't have the flame they used to have. And because they don't, I find myself working, double and triple in certain things that I didn't have to before, because they're not on fire with the gospel. I noticed that conversations also, people would rather talk about the guilt of another or how bad of a job somebody else is doing, rather than discuss those things in the gospel of Jesus Christ, rather than giving somebody some food of the Word of God or some drink of the water of life from Christ. They would rather do something else, and their indulgence in such things is growing, causes a person to drift. And when you start talking about the gospel, because the Bible says there would come a time when men would no longer endure sound doctrine. When you can't endure sound doctrine, which is the doctrine of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, if you can't endure that or listen to that, I listen to the Gospels all the time. How can they get old to people? Some people say, well, we want to hear about something else. We already know that. They have no fire for it, because a person who really wants to hear the gospel, they're listening, they're interested. Those who don't want to hear the gospel are spouting off their own narrative. We're guilty of that. We're guilty of that to a degree, because that's exactly what we do when we're not interested in the gospel. Because to be interested in the gospel, when I hear somebody teaching about the gospel being precious, when somebody is teaching about it, especially if it's a subject I know, I'm supportive of that person who's speaking about it. I cannot help but to be, because I hear the gospel and it's almost like a call to arms to stand up in honor of the Lord Jesus Christ, because somebody is trying to reach the lost, and I'll stand supportive of that one with whom that gospel comes out of. I'll do it every single time. Why? Because I love the Lord's word. I cannot tire of it. But a lot of people are not like that, because they don't rely upon the gospel. See, you may not know this, but I rely upon God's word. God's word to me is not a collection of books. It's not a collection of these clever writings or anything else. It's certainly not a philosophy. I live by it on a day-to-day basis. I would be dead without the word of God. Right now, this moment, I would be dead. There's no medicine, nothing can sustain me. I'd be gone, be too far gone. God's word sustains me. His word is life. It is real. And it's the reason I have this, let's just say, contagious joy. And it's unfortunate that we can't trust each other enough. There's so many of you who have a story. You have an issue, you have a problem, you have something going on. You cannot speak to your brother or your sister about the situation, because you know that criticism and judgment will follow. And it's not just normal, because you know that certain people don't care about your life. They will hear your fault and use it against you. They will disqualify you because you confess something. You guys know about people having DUIs, and because they consolidated a lot of computers, when they do one of those federal back checks, all that stuff comes out. Your entire history. And a lot of people are just so embarrassed because they had 2 DUIs. It'll show up now, everywhere. And they don't like that. And then you have folks behind the computers who will sit there with a smirk on their face, judging the person for what they used to be, because they don't understand one of the greatest principles in the Word of God. You know what it is? No one stays the same. It doesn't matter who you are and what you're doing. No one stays the same. They change every day of their lives. You are not who you were yesterday. Who you are today is who I seek to know. I don't care who you were yesterday. Yesterday is gone. Your past, it doesn't matter who you were back then. That's gone. It does not exist. Who you are before me today is who you are. But there's so many people who do not operate like that. They call out your past, don't they? They know you by what you did, don't they? They refuse to see who you are, but they're looking at who you were. And all of us have an old man in our lives. Doesn't matter who you are. All of us have an old man in our lives. All of us have a dead person in our lives. One that is dead, that we're getting away from. It doesn't matter who you are on the face of this earth. Your spirit may be one thing, but your heritage you're stuck with. Doesn't matter who you are. There's no divine flesh here on this earth. Sorry, there's not. It's all messed up. And everybody here on this earth has to deal with that, no matter who you are spiritually. You have to deal with that. We're getting there, though. We will get to that point of openness. When the worse a person is, the more we're going to love that person. When a person comes to us with a shameful situation, and because of the true love, at a moment's notice, they'll feel embraced. The moment they walk in the door, they're going to feel that embrace. Something they will feel in their flesh, not only their spirit, but their flesh also. That's the environment. That's how it works. It works in an atmosphere of truthfulness, decency. That cannot exist without Christ, not for us. Everything else is one of those imposter environments, a counterfeit environment. It does not yield. People are nice to gain information, to fry you with all sorts of small little dirty tactics they use, and you guys know about those tactics, which causes you to be skeptical about everybody that comes forward. But don't worry, the Lord already knew this time would come. So he did quite a bit in your life to break things that needed to be broken so that you can make a choice. He's going somewhere with your life. Because all of us, we're not promised tomorrow. We will be gone from this earth, one way or another. We don't know what we will be, but those who make it, we shall be like him. Jesus, he maintained his flesh. But take note, he is not flesh and blood, because flesh and blood will not enter into the kingdom of God. That means the way you're alive now is not how you're going to be alive then. It'll be quite different. Now, all this is imperative, folks. It's the first step. If you can recognize tonight's topic, and I would just beg of you to go over Luke 13, because you have no idea what you're about to go through. Yes, you do belong to the Most High, but the Lord says, those who make it, he always knew. And those who don't make it, he never knew them. And if he always knew you, guess what? He's been with you from day one. And since that is the case, there's been no time in your life Jesus has been absent, which means your life has been formulated. Every freedom that you have in life. Don't you know what's been happening? Let me say this real quick. I'm going to make this very simple. If everybody here had a puppy that did everything you told it to do, but when you didn't tell it anything, it just stayed and waited for you to tell it to do something. And then when you didn't tell it to do anything, it would just sit and wait for further instruction. How many would like that puppy? For all of you who would like that, let me go get you a toaster, because that's essentially what that puppy would be, is a toaster. A dog that did everything you wanted it to do, no rebellion, no anything, it would just do everything you wanted it to do. That's a robot. It would have no choice to do everything you wanted to do, right? That's a robot. But let me ask you this. In comparison with a puppy that would do everything you wanted it to do when you said to do it, how many of you would love to have a puppy, you'd like this over the first one, that would hear what you wanted to do and hear what other people asked it to do, would hear that too, but it chose to do it your way? How many would love that puppy better than the first? It would just choose to do it your way, and you would see it struggle to try and do it your way. Sometimes it'd mess it up, sometimes it wouldn't. See, somebody type triple ones up there. I don't know about you, but a puppy that would attempt to listen to me over everybody else, I would love that puppy, because I would know something about that puppy versus the first one. If it listened to me above everybody else, and it chose to do what I wanted it to do, and I would see it mess up, but it would try to do it, I would love that little fella. I would love it. See, I see a lot of ones, enthusiastic ones, over the first one. What is the difference, though? Most people want things their way anyway, right? You want things your way. But when it comes to things that are living, you want something that chooses you, don't you? Not a robot. Not something that just automatically does what you tell it to do. You want something that chooses to listen to you. Isn't that right? Because you know that that little animal would love you above everybody else, and you would love it back, wouldn't you? Now, think of that story with the puppy who chooses you over everybody else. Do you not know your life is the same way? Since day one, you've had two choices before you in everything you would do, and you're choosing who your father is. See, all of us had sin in our lives, yes. Not all of us chose to commit those sins. We thought we had to for survival's sake. See, many of us right now, we have a heart to listen to the Lord, but many of us pursue to hear him and to respond to him because he is our Father. Some people want to say yes out of fear. So if he says something, they do it, whether they grumble about it or anything else. But remember, just like that second puppy who chose to do what you wanted it to do, and it tried so hard to complete the task, it did not make it all the way. You would love that puppy even the more. Why? Because it attempted to listen in something it could not perform. And in those moments, you would love it twice as much. Your life has been the same way. How many times has God put you in a situation and you tried to do it the Lord's way? To be a good child, right? Because you loved your father, because you recognized his goodness or something like that, right? You tried to do it his way and it blew up in your face. How many have had that situation? I tell you, in that situation, double the love came from the Father to you. Do you see what's happening? Over time, you're becoming that choice. Over time. See, in everything you seek to accomplish for the sake of the Father, you're demonstrating your love for him, because you're not just hearing him, you're hearing darkness also. Haven't you noticed? When the Lord tells you something, so does darkness say, hey, why don't you do it this way? Do it that way. But you're choosing the Lord. Do you understand? And every time you do that, when you attempt to do that, whether you succeed or not, you're conveying your love for the Father. Some people say, well, I just want the Father to know I love him, then obey him. Now you know why that topic of obedience is so important. But obedience must never be forced. It must be chosen. In everything you do in life, you're just like that little tiny puppy. You're not going to do it every single time, but your attempt means everything. See, because in those times when you start messing up, you're going to have that embrace from the Most High because you gave it your all. That's why the Bible says, having done all you could do, stand therefore. Now do you understand those scriptures? You see how clear scripture is? When you see it from a perspective of the truth of love itself, how clear can those scriptures be? Giving you something to relate to, you can see it yourselves. Your life is a culmination of these choices. Such simplicity. The Messiah being sent so that no matter the extent of the failure, we could repent and move on. If we were distracted, drawn down the wrong highway, we could be forgiven. If we ever adopted a heart of forgiveness, if we ever sought to be forgiven, because the Lord died for us, that can be granted, and we could continue to go forward. The Father has done this. And in the end, you will be the sum of your choices.